Good evening, everybody. My name's Melissa. Welcome to my kitchen. Today, I'm going to be making a dessert for you. It's going to be cinnamon donuts with a cinnamon maple glaze. Let's get started. Before we get started, I have a YouTube channel at Cook Keto with Melissa. Please subscribe and then click that bell because that way you get any new content that I post on my page. So I'm going to show you what ingredients you're going to need to get started with. So the first thing that you're going to need is some almond flour. So you can use any blend of almond flour you want. You just want to make sure it's super fine blanched almond flour. I just get the great value. I live in Ohio, so I just go to my local Walmart and I get it, but you can use any brand that you want. The second thing that you're going to need is your sweetener. I use either monk fruit, I use Preheat, and I use Swerve. You can use any blend that you want. This one has a stevia blend. If you do not want to use this brand, you can use any particular brand that you want. And then the next thing you're going to need, so then the other thing that you want to add, which is very important in your donuts, because when you're cooking low carb, you need that gluten to help hold things together. And one of the most important things to do, and you don't have like a self-rising flour other than your almond flour, so you need to have something added to help make your donuts cakey and fluffy and airy and light, and for it to also hold its shape. You can eliminate this, but I would highly recommend putting in some vanilla protein powder. You can use any brand that you wish to use. You can use whey protein powder. I am a gastric bypass patient, so I get my vitamins online through a vitamin company that gives vitamins for gastric bypass patients, and they gave me this as a sample. Normally I use either whey protein powder or I use another brand as well, but you can use any one you want. If you wish to leave that out, that is up to you. This just helps make your donuts cakey, and it gives that strength that it needs that you don't use with regular gluten flour. And then the next thing you're going to need is some salt, 2 eggs, 3 tablespoons of butter, but you need another 3 tablespoons later for your icing. We'll get to that in a minute. You want your ground cinnamon, and you also need your baking powder, and you need vanilla. So we're going to get started with the dry ingredients first. So one thing I did want to add also too about the protein powder, not only makes your donuts light and airy, but it also helps keep the donuts from being fragile and falling apart. This helps, it holds its shape and gives it strength. So that's another key reason. However, once again, you can eliminate it altogether. Just prepare for it to be a little bit like really fragile. It may fall apart easier and not really hold its shape, so I leave that up to you. So the first thing you want to do to get started with your donuts is you want to add your almond flour. So you're going to add 1.5 cups of your almond flour. Okay, so once you add your 1.5 cups of almond flour, you want to go ahead and add your sweetener, and you want to add 6 tablespoons of your favorite sweetener, such as Swerve, stevia, Preheat, monk fruit, whatever your favorite sweetener is, you can put in here. Any one would work. And while you're mixing your dry ingredients, you want to make sure your oven is set at 325 and let it preheat while you're mixing up your ingredients. So while the oven's preheated, the next thing you want to do is go ahead and add if you're going to use your protein powder, make sure it's a vanilla flavored protein powder, and you want to add 2 tablespoons of your protein powder. Just sprinkle that on in there. It smells amazing. Now, after you add your protein powder, the next thing that you're going to want to do is go ahead and add your baking powder. So you're just going to add 1.5 teaspoons of your baking powder. Okay, so after you add your baking powder, then you want to add the next ingredient, which is your ground cinnamon. And you're just going to add 1 teaspoon of your ground cinnamon. Once again, you just want to sprinkle that on in there. And then the last dry ingredient that you want to add before you whisk it up is your salt. And you want to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I usually don't like to pour it over my bowl, so I'll just use it over here in case it gets too much. I'm gonna have to break that up and then just sprinkle that on in there. Sometimes I like to put it in my spoon over my sink because sometimes it could get chunky just sitting in your pantry. So I'm just gonna whisk all this together. You guys, it smells amazing with that vanilla protein powder with the cinnamon in there. All these are gonna be some amazing donuts. And depending upon the size of your donut pan, depends upon how many donuts you get. If you fill it up 2/3 full, it should make about 8 donuts. Once again, just depends upon the size of your donut pan. Okay, so now the dry ingredients are all mixed together, so you want to go ahead and start incorporating your wet ingredients. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and melt your 3 tablespoons of butter. Okay, so I'm going to add my 3 tablespoons of butter into my dry ingredients. The next thing you want to do is add 2 eggs lightly beaten. So you just want to have your eggs lightly beaten. Smells delicious. And then you just incorporate that into your dry ingredients. And then you want to start to mix this up. Now you can use a hand mixer if you choose to, or you can just whisk it together. Whatever you feel is easier for you to do. That's why I whisked the eggs to make it. Sometimes you don't want to bring out your mixer if it's just a 5-minute recipe. The next thing that you want to do is add your almond milk. Okay, and so you're just going to use a 1/4 cup for your almond milk. Now you can use any brand of almond milk that you choose. I just used the Silk brand because I'm familiar with it. But however, you can use any brand. You want to make sure that it's unsweet almond milk, and I get the flavorless when I'm baking, unless it calls for a vanilla flavored. They do have vanilla flavored unsweet almond milk. And once again, I just shop at my local Walmart. I live in Ohio, and that's where I get mine, and I'm using the Silk brand. One tip that I can offer you is if you do not have almond milk, or let's say, because at times this happens to me, and you just want to mix this in. There are times that my Walmarts ran out of them, or they didn't have the unsweet, because they do have almond milk, so make sure you look for it to say unsweet. Otherwise, then you're not keeping it low carb or keto. The next final step that you want to do, but one tip I do want to add is if you don't find almond milk or an unsweet almond milk, you can do half cream and half water, and then that would work perfectly fine. So you can definitely substitute half cream and half water. The next and final step with this mixture before you put your donuts in the pan is you want to go ahead and add your vanilla extract. And you're just going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract in your donut batter. And then you're just gonna whisk this together, or you can use a mixer, or you can just use a spoon, whatever is easier for you to make sure you get it well incorporated. And it should start to look like this. Okay, so my oven has been preheated at 325 degrees. It has gone off. So the next thing you want to do is, after you incorporate all your wet and dry ingredients, you want to take a donut pan. If you don't have one, you can use a 6-cup muffin pan. But I have 9 donut hole pans. But you only want to, depending upon the size, but you really only want to get maybe 2/3 in each. But the main thing you want to do so that they don't stick is go ahead and spray your donut pan. Even though this is a non-stick pan, you still want to spray it. And this is what my donut pan looks like. I believe I got this at a Bed Bath & Beyond store is where I found my donut pan. But I believe I've seen them at Walmart before too. And mine has 9, but we'll see how many we could get into this size pan. So you just want to put 2/3 cup in each pan. You don't want to overflow it, because as it bakes, it's going to cake up, and you don't want it to overflow. Okay, so I just used a rubber spatula, whatever you want to call it. And I just spooned my batter into my donut pan. I am able to comfortably get all 9 of my donut holes filled up. And then I'm going to show you what it looks like before you put it in the oven. Okay, so I just wiped around the edges of the pan, and I just want to show you what it looks like. What I do is I make sure it's evenly spread out. I use my rubber spatula to make sure it's spread out evenly. You can even take a butter knife and just make sure it's evenly spread out in your pan. Make sure it's evenly filled in each of the cups, because if you don't have them evenly filled, then you don't want to have some that are overbaked than others. So that's a key thing that you want to do, is just make sure that they're evenly spread out in your pan. You want to make sure that each side has an even amount than the other, or just make sure you just go around either with your rubber spatula, your knife, either one will work. Just make sure you got the even amount all the way around. That way, like I said, you don't have any of them overbake, or one of the sides overbake on it. And this is the consistency you're looking for. So look, it's ready to go in the oven. My oven was 325 degree preheated. It went off. The only thing that you want to do is get the air bubbles out. So I just take my pan and I just lightly kind of just tap it. Just a couple taps, nothing big. Maybe about 4 good taps gets the air bubbles out. It's ready to go in the oven. So you bake it about 15 to 18 minutes. You're looking for it to be a golden brown. You may want to check on it after about 15 minutes. My oven is a Frigidaire. It's a newer oven, but it will probably more than likely take the 18 minutes. That's how my oven is. Whenever it gives a range, say 15 to 18 minutes, it usually takes the high end of it. But everybody's oven's different. So just keep an eye on it. You're looking for that golden brown. Another key way to know, not only you can do the toothpick test as well, but when they start to just pull a little bit away from the sides, then you know it's done. So let's get this on in the oven, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so before you make the glaze, you may want to hold off on that. What you want to make the glaze just right before you're getting ready to glaze up your donuts. The key thing though, when you make your glaze, after you pull the donuts out, you need them to rest about 5 minutes in the pan itself before, just to get them to cool off a little bit and to set a little bit. So maybe just put it out on like a trivet or something, just get it off the warm stove. Let it cool for about 5 minutes before you flip them out onto a baking sheet with a cooling rack, because then you're gonna let the air get up through it and cool it off even more for another 20 minutes before you glaze it. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to set up my cooling rack for when my donuts come out of the oven. So right now it's got about 16 minutes to go. I'm going to check on mine after about 15 minutes. Once again, everybody's oven varies, so it goes for 15 to 18 minutes. Also, one key thing as well is it depends upon the size of your donut pan. So you saw the size of my donut pan. Mine's a 9 hole donut pan. So if you have an 8, they may be a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit thicker. If you have 6, same thing. So you just want to determine how your oven is with the variation of the size of your donut pan. So if you have a small pack of a protein powder like this or anything left over such as this, you can just add it to your favorite protein shake. If you make smoothies, if you want coffee, this just gives you extra protein, and that goes for anybody, whether you're a gastric bypass patient or not. This just gives you the extra protein. Protein, everybody knows, it's the key thing that makes you stay full longer. So I'm gonna just put mine in and make it in a coffee. So another thing that I do while my stuff is in the oven and baking is I prepare for when they come out. So I get my oven mitts out, and then I'm going to get my baking pan out with my cooling rack, and then a little trivet to set the donut pan on while it's cooling in the pan for 5 minutes. But I also clean up. I just take this opportunity to wipe everything down, clean it up. That way you have a fresh space to work with whenever you get ready to glaze your donuts. So I have about 4 minutes left until they come out of the oven. They're looking pretty good, and I'm just gonna check on them once again. They puffed out really nicely, and they're coming along. So I'm gonna let them go the rest of the 4 minutes. So in between that, what you want to do is you do want to start getting your glaze together, but you don't want to prepare the butter just yet. So I just wanted to show you that I got a bowl, and I just added my 7 tablespoons of my powdered sugar. I use Swerve. That's my favorite go-to powdered sugar. Make sure when you're making your glaze that you're adding powdered confectioner sugar, not regular granular. You have to make sure it's confectioner sugar. And I use Swerve. Once again, I just get it at my local Walmart. You can use any brand's powdered confectioner sugar you wish. Just make sure it is a sweetener substitute. So it says confectioner sugar. There's 0 calories, natural taste, and you can use it in baking and things like that. So you just want to make sure it's your keto-friendly powdered sugar, not the regular powdered sugar. And I use Swerve brand. Okay, and then I just have it measured out in my bowl, and then I'm just gonna wait for the donuts to come out of the oven. Now, while the donuts are cooling, that's when you want to get the remainder of your ingredients started for your glaze. So the one thing that you're going to get started, once your donut comes out and it starts to cool, you want 3 tablespoons of butter just in a small pan, because what you're going to do is you're going to create a brown butter. This is what's going to make the glaze a brown glazed buttery ooey gooey glaze topping for your donuts. So we're not going to start that yet until the donuts come out and that they start to cool. Okay, you guys, they came out of the oven. They look amazing. They puffed up. They look beautiful. This is what they look like. So I'm just gonna come over here and put it on my little cooling pads. And you just want it to sit and cool for about 5 minutes or so before you flip them out and let them cool on the cooling rack. So after you let the donuts sit and cool in the pan for about 5 minutes, then you want to flip them over. And as you can see, I have my wire rack over here. So let me see if I can turn there we go. So I have my wire rack down there on my cookie sheet, and it's ready to go. So I'm going to wait 5 minutes. I'm going to let the donuts sit in the pan and just kind of toughen up and cool a little bit, and then you'll flip them over and lay them on the cookie sheet on your cooling rack, and then you're gonna let them cool completely, because if you glaze them while they're still hot, then the glaze is just gonna run right off, and you don't want that to happen. So you want to make sure your donuts are nice and cool before you glaze it. So I have all my ingredients out that I'm gonna make my glaze. Now you can just do a normal glaze with your 7 tablespoons of your Swerve confectionate sugar, or whatever confectionate sugar you choose. Just make sure it's a sugar substitute, and make sure it's a powdered confectioner sugar. And then you want to brown your butter, because you're gonna brown it for about 4 minutes, because you want that sweet and nutty taste to come out of it. That's why you wanna brown your butter. So you're gonna use brown butter, and you're just gonna let that stew for about 4 minutes on medium heat. We're not gonna do that just yet. I'm just getting you prepared to what you need to do for your next steps. Then you're gonna add a tablespoon of heavy cream at a time, because you don't want it to be runny. So you wanna check your consistency, but you don't wanna go beyond 2 tablespoons. You wanna add 1 tablespoon at a time and mix it up and check your consistency. Then the last step after you add in all of that would be, you can either do just regular vanilla extract in there and then mix it all together, and then it's supposed to be really thick. You want your glaze to be thick. It's not a runny glaze that you would put on a cinnamon roll. You want it to be a thick, nice, like icing consistency on your donut. That's another reason why you want your donuts to be completely cooled. But I have a secret ingredient that I'm going to use in mine, actually 2, but I'll get to that step in a minute. So I'm going to let these cool, and then I'll show you what they look like when they're flipped out, and then we will get to the step of making your icing. Okay guys, the donuts are out of the pan. I flipped them out, and now they're on the cooling rack, and they are cooling right now. Let me show you what they look like. Okay guys, this is what they look like. They're sitting on the cooling rack, and you got to have them completely cool before you want to glaze them. So they are cooling on the cooling rack. Once again here, this is what they look like after you flip them out of the pan. You want to let them sit and cool for about 10 minutes while you go ahead and get started with your maple glaze. Just make sure before you glaze them that they're completely cooled off. So depending on how warm it is in your kitchen or the atmosphere, depends upon how cool they get, but you want them completely cooled before you ice them. Okay guys, so while your donuts are cooling on the cooling rack here, sorry if my phone falls, I'm trying to get it propped up, that way I can move the phone with me. You want to go ahead and brown your butter on medium heat, so let's get started with that. So you take 3 tablespoons of butter, and you just put it in a small saucepan on medium heat, and you want to make it you want to have it melted, and then you want to stir it for about 4 minutes on medium heat, because this will make it a brown butter, and it makes it very sweet and nutty flavored. So then you're going to take it off the heat, and you're going to cool it for about 10 minutes, excuse me. So you'll know your butter is done after 4 minutes when it's brown, and you get this overwhelming, beautiful, buttery, nutty fragrance from it, and you just want to keep stirring it. And then once again, you're going to take it off of the heat, and then you're going to let it stand. Just set it on a trivet and let it cool for about 10 minutes. So you just want to keep stirring for about 4 minutes until it becomes brown and nutty. So it's getting there, guys, for about 1 more minute, and it should be ready to be taken off the oven. It's almost like it's caramelizing. Okay, so it looks like this, and you're just going to let it sit for 10 minutes. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and finish the rest of your glaze while that's cooking for 10 minutes. You just want to add in a separate bowl your 7 tablespoons of your powdered sugar. And then after that cools for 10 minutes, then you're going to add in my secret ingredients. So I'll get to that. Okay, so here's my little secret ingredient. So I substitute the regular vanilla extract for maple extract. You just need a 1/4 teaspoon. but sometimes extract just doesn't give you that strong mapley flavor. So I'm going to add a dash of this. What you do want to do, because maple syrup could be a little bit on the thick side, is thin it up by just heating it up in the microwave or your pan, whatever is easier for you. So I'm going to go ahead and leave my burner on to the medium heat that it was on to keep it warm. And all I'm going to do is just a little dab of this. You don't want to use much because you don't want to liquefy your glaze. You just want enough to give you that maple flavor. You can just use strictly the maple extract and not add any of the syrup. However, that is up to you. Or you can just use straight vanilla extract and not make it a maple glaze. I use either Smucker's or Mrs. Butterworth, but it is a sugar-free maple syrup. When you heat it up, you just want to heat it up a little bit. I would say no more than a half teaspoon, just enough to get that mapley consistency, because you do not want it too liquidy. However, when you do add your heavy cream, you can also cut down by a half teaspoon and substitute a half teaspoon of your sugar-free maple syrup. So once your butter has cooled for about 10 minutes, I got about another 5 minutes, just use a small whisk, and you want to slowly incorporate your brown butter into your sweetener before you add the other ingredients. So you do not want to add your heavy cream just yet. You want to make sure you incorporate the brown butter first. Okay guys, it's been 10 minutes. So what you want to do is just slowly incorporate your brown butter. You don't want to add it all at once. You just want to kind of whisk it in a little bit at a time. And get it incorporated here. Powdered sugar can be such a mess. Just add a little bit more until it's well incorporated. Oh, it smells so good. That brown butter really gives it that sweet, nutty flavor, and that's what you're looking for. It just adds to this glaze. Okay, so I'm going to keep adding some more. Look at that brown butter and how nutty and golden it looks. And then after it sits for 10 minutes and cools off, it gets that fragrantly, it just smells so good. So before you add in your heavy cream, you just want to get that mixed into your 7 tablespoons of your powdered confectionate sugar. And then you'll add in your 1 tablespoon at a time heavy cream. Okay, so once that's mixed and well incorporated, you're going to start your heavy cream. You can use any brand heavy cream you like. I just have a Giant Eagle brand. I don't know if you're from Giant Eagle. And you just want to start with 1 tablespoon at a time and get that mixed in there. And your glaze will be kind of thick. And that's what you want. And you're just going to whisk it in. And then you want to add another tablespoon of your heavy whipping cream as well. So I'm getting ready to add in my 2nd tablespoon of my heavy whipping cream. Now I already whisked everything together, so I switched over to a spoon because it started to stick to my whisk. So in order to get it to mix better, I swapped over to a spoon. Now this is going to be thick, and that's what you want. But if you feel like it's too thick, you can always add a little bit more heavy cream. But at this point, what you want to do is add in your final ingredient. Now I already added in my little secret ingredient, which is my maple syrup. I had already melted that in this pan and I already incorporated it in. So the final thing that you want to add, you can either add a 1/4 teaspoon of just regular vanilla extract, But in my case, I want to make this a maple glaze, so I'm adding maple extract. And that's the last thing that you want to add into your glaze. And remember, it's supposed to be on the thick side. And you just want to incorporate this and mix it really good. And it's supposed to look like this. It's supposed to look like a frosting consistency. If you want it a little bit thinner, then you can just add a little heavy cream, but you don't want it too thin. This is the thickness that you want your glaze to be. It's not a thin glaze that you would put on, say, a glazed donut that's supposed to be a glazed donut, or on a like cinnamon roll. You want it to be the thick frosting consistency. But as I stated, if you feel like it's a little too thick, you can just add a little bit more heavy cream, because you definitely want it to be spreadable on your donut. So now that my donuts have completely cooled, you just want to take, you could do a rubber spatula, or you can just take a butter knife and spread this on each donut. So we're going to do that right now. They look amazing. So after you frost the donuts, you just let them sit and let the frosting set on there for about 20 minutes or so. Like, how amazing does this look, guys? I did get one upside down on accident. And that's about it. I made 9 donuts. You can frost them as thin as you would like, as thick as you like. I'm not a frosty queen, so they're not, what do you want to call it, professionally frosted, but hey, they work. I tasted it. It tastes very nutty with that brown butter. It looks delicious. It smells delicious. The last thing you might want to do is add a touch of cinnamon on the top, just for some little sprinkles. And let me show you, you can only do half of them, or you could do all of them. It's your preference. And there you have it, everybody. Your cinnamon maple glazed donuts with a splash of cinnamon on top. However, you can leave the cinnamon off the top if you don't want to garnish it with cinnamon, or you can just garnish it with your favorite garnishment. You could use a caramel sauce, a chocolate sauce, eat it plain. You don't even have to frost your donuts. It's your preference. Just remember, you can swap out the regular vanilla extract in your frosting for maple extract to give it a maple glaze. I hope you enjoy. If you enjoyed my donuts and enjoyed my video, please subscribe at my YouTube channel at Cook Keto with Melissa. Click on the subscribe, tap that bell, that way you get any new content that I post. Remember, it's quick and easy, it's keto friendly, it's the keto lifestyle, low carb, and not only that it's quick and easy, it's budget friendly. And most of the ingredients you should already have in your pantry. Have a great day. Enjoy.